Continuing our read up A to Z's. Like I said, I gotta show my new bookmark. This one is Hot and Steamy Book Rules. Oh my gosh, it's not showing up. Well, that's a bummer. Oh, there we go. That looks better. Yeah. So, Ron Die over at Port Witch. Today, we are doing I for Innocence. Bad Kids chapter. Quote, whether she was a good person or a bad person, I played her as just a person involved in those activities, which was probably even more frightening to watch. Patty McCormick. Quote, from all around, the children were coming. Some of them were laughing gaily. They held knives, hatchets, pikes, rocks, hammers. One girl, maybe 8, with a beautiful long blonde hair, held a jack-handle from Children of the Corn by Stephen King. Quote, there are few children who have not pulled the wings off a few flies at some point in their development or squatted patiently on the sidewalk to see how a bug dies. Stephen King. Since the Garden of Eden, kids have been getting worse. At least that is what some adults, forgetting that they were ever kids themselves, will tell you. Did you really bring up your little angels to behave like little devils? And if that was not you, then what exactly is driving them? Ever since Ray Bradbury opened up the dark side of childhood in 1947 with his short story of a murderous baby, The Small Assassin, horror has claimed our kids. These days, everything in the nursery looks both enchanting and cruel. There's a view of the child, says Hannah Castian, reader in modern languages at London University, that we perhaps have inherited from the 19th century, which sees the child as a wild animal. As such, it poses a threat to society and to its order, which the parents subscribe to. How do the parents go about taming this wild animal? Well, in the 19th century, there were examples that parents could look for. One of them was Heinrich Hoffmann's book, Der Struwwelpeter. There was a number of children actually pay with their lives for their disobedience. For centuries, we have been unsettled by our children. Out of the adult fictions of wicked children and brutal punishment comes one of the most dishonest ideas in modern horror, that of the evil child. I've always been very dubious of this notion of children as evil, says horror author Ramsey Campbell. Sometimes this use of them in the horror genre is actually a way of reading that we don't want to admit about ourselves to a convenient scapegoat. I think the notion of childhood innocence involves a morality, but I think that the prevailing idealization of children makes people feel betrayed if children act the way we used to act as kids. I'm inclined to feel that what is really going on here is the forgetting of what it was actually like to be children. According to Paul Wells, the Department of Media Studies at De Montfort University, Leicester, by the mid-1950s, Americans had seen the Korean War, they had seen McCarthyism, the rise of commercial television, and suddenly the American dream didn't seem as solid as it used to be. The scapegoat for this was the youth culture. Suddenly, America turned its head toward the youth culture and children in particular. A society obsessed with molding children into shape was fertile ground for the horror genre to plant the nightmarish idea of an uncontrollable child. In 1956, the first film to make a child the focus of fear was released. The Bad Seed had started life as a best-selling book and a hit play, but it was to have as big an impact as a movie. Horror no longer had the twisted face of a monster. For the first time, it was to be found in the smile of a little girl. The Bad Seed tells the story of Rhoda Penmark, an 8-year-old child murderess played by 11-year-old Patty McCormick, who starred in the play and received an Academy Award nomination for her portrayal in the film. Rhoda beats and drowns a young classmate and then proceeds to burn alive the caretaker who discovers her crime. We have a picture of Patty McCormick in The Bad Seed. And then we had opened with a quote from the actor. What motivated Rhoda was the sense that her own morality was about taking care of herself, exclaims McCormick. She didn't weigh up right and wrong the way other people did. She had no sense of not being good or not being bad. She just took care of business. Children are naturally transgressive, says Paul Wells. They go to places where they're not supposed to go. They behave in a way that they are not supposed to. Horror movies like The Bad Seed take that one step further. They say, what if a child is allowed to break all those rules and regulations that their parents have given them? What will happen then? Just how far will they go? When the film was released, the activities of such an evil child were met with public dismay. The official response to such transgression was immediate. Concerned in copycat behavior, the American authorities banned all children from the movie theaters where The Bad Seed was playing, something unheard of in the days before official film classification in the US. I know that from firsthand experience, reveals McCormack, because when we went to a theater, I can't remember where, they objected to my going in. It had to be explained I was in the film before they let me in. What made the film even more controversial were the debates about the story's ending. In the original stage adaptation, Rhoda's crimes went shockingly unpunished. The play's producers knew that the public would not tolerate this lack of retribution. When Nancy Kelly took her curtain call, recalls McCormack, she added, bringing me out. I had already had my curtain call, and then she told me to come here. And she sat on the couch and flipped me over her lap and spanked me, which was very satisfying for the audience, who I suppose also wanted to do that. So, The Bad Seed. Okay, so they have two versions listed here. 1956, director Mervyn LeRoy with Nancy Kelly, Patty McCormack, Henry Jones, Eileen Heckart, Evelyn Warden, William Hopper, Warner Brothers, Black and White. Macabre but stagey version of Maxwell Anderson's play based on the novel by William March about a pig-tailed murderess possessed by an inherited evil, the bad seed of that title. McCormack gives an Oscar-nominated performance as the precocious, cold-blooded killer, and Jones plays Leroy, the mentally handicapped caretaker who sees through her lies until she burns him to death. After the girl's mother, Kelly, shoots herself, and the little girl is struck by lightning while looking for a medal, not in the play. A tacked-on curtain call plays at the last since Kelly spanks McCormack. The Paul Fix and Jesse remake, The Bad Seed, 1985. USA, 1985. Director Paul Wendkus with Blair Brown, Lynn Redgrave, David Carradine, Carrie Wells, Richard Kiley, David Ogden Stiers, Warner Brothers Colors. Surprisingly impressive TV movie remake of the 1956 film, also based on the play by Maxwell Anderson and William March's novel. Wells is chilling as Rachel Penmark, a 9-year-old child who will kill to get what she wants. Thanks to George Eckstein's superior script, director Wendkus coaxes fine performances from Redgrave as a flamboyant neighbor. Ogden Stiers is a crime novelist, and Carradine is Leroy Jessup, the simple gardener who suspects the child's secrets. Quote, I believe children can rid themselves of feelings of hatred and violence while watching us on the screen instead of taking it out on their friends, parents, friends, and school teachers. Vincent Price. Seed. And then there's also here Village of Damned. The film's producers were even more certain that such an evil child would have to be properly punished, and they took retribution one step further. It caused problems when it was made into a film, explains Paul Wells, because the original ending of the play had the child murderess getting away with her crimes with absolutely no remorse whatsoever. The ending of the film now shows the child being punished by a bolt of lightning, the ultimate divine intervention. With this extravagant climax, adult audiences had the satisfaction of seeing the rebellious child quelled for good, at least in their imaginations. Quote, I was by no means alone in my fascination with the chilling stuff. Most children showed a healthy appetite for the monstrous. It's only later we're shamed and bullied in suppressing that appetite, so that for many readers, horror fiction is still a guilty pleasure. And then there's a list of evil children in the movies, all the way up to 1996. And we got the original Children of the Damned right here. I still haven't seen the original. I finally watched the remake, and oh God, this could be gross and creepy. But also, like, children are just weird to begin with. And I think everybody knows that. I have a child, and she's still like a little strange weirdo. I love her, though. But yeah, that's Bad Kids. I remember being fascinated by Bad Kids when I was little. I think it has to do with being raised super ridiculously religious, that it skews your like worldview. It really does, because like you're just looking for evil and bad everywhere, even though like that's not at all how anybody should live. So that is I for Innocence. That was a really short one. That was I for Innocence. Next week is J for Japan. So next week should be fun. And we will continue every Wednesday till the end of the year. So thank you for reading with me, and I will see you next week.